Calaroga Shark Media.
Hey there, happy Derby Day. I'm Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news, a daily briefing on stand-up comedy, comedians, and the comedy industry. Catherine Blandford is a name you should keep an eye on. She's been to the Derby. She said, I was in college and took my roommate to the Derby with me. She'd never been to Kentucky. I was like, porta potty races, tradition. I forgot to tell her it's illegal. She gets to the end and she's dancing and celebrating and people are cheering and the cops are waiting for her to get down. I was hiding, and she was like, I'm a teen mom. It's my first night out. She went to the drunk tank for the rest of the Derby. Lanford started performing comedy at the University of South Carolina. She says, I'd done a competition for a fraternity when I was in college. It was like a pageant. You had to do a talent portion. I wrote a sketch like I was Chelsea Handler. That's when her show Chelsea Lately was big. I roasted a bunch of frat guys and then did an interview with a pledge from the fraternity's Charlie Sheen. Obviously, we won, and I kind of had the bug. She hit it big in 2022 when a clip of her joking about her parents being cousins went viral. David Spade saw the clip and they connected. Blandford started opening for Spade. That lasted 2 years. She started headlining on her own, moved to L.A. She's a regular at the Improv and the Laugh Factory. She plans to record 2 specials this year. Interesting. Max Amini was asked by The Hollywood Reporter, do you think the rulers of Iran will ever loosen their grip? Max says, I think so, and it has. I think of it as water and oil. The ideology hasn't been able to penetrate a culture that people there have had in their DNA for centuries. Go back to the attacks on the Mongols, to the Arabs, to the Greeks, and so on. These different ideologies and invasions have affected the country and the people and the culture, but the foundation cannot be destroyed. The minute young Iranians get an opportunity to show themselves, I think the world will see a very friendly, kind, and enthusiastic nation who likes to smile. Look, despite 47 years of this Islamic Republic mentality, every household still has their parties and gatherings, they have art shows, and man, the music they listen to, they're so open-minded. You have social media, and the younger generation are moderates. Over time, I think it's going to de-escalate. When I was in Iran, you weren't allowed to have a cassette tape, and you'd get arrested for listening to music. Today, the same regime allows concerts, obviously with a lot of guidelines, but the progression has happened, it's inevitable. Max says, I never really thought of the opportunity to do comedy in Iran, but when I came back to America, that true sense of freedom, that I can do all these things I could have never done in Iran, was the spark. When I started college, I decided to become a theater major and pursue acting and comedy. I was very funny when I did my improv with my classmates. I discovered stand-up comedy through that. In the last 4 or 5 years, a lot of young stand-up comedians have popped in Iran. They're doing open mics, and they have their little comedy cafes that didn't previously exist in Iran. I feel like me hanging in there and doing stand-up in Farsi is going to pave the way for Iranian comedians down the line to be able to tour and build from there. Right, Max, why do you think he got popular? He said, for many years, I was disappointed that the industry was not recognizing my talent. No casting director, producer, director, no projects, no comedy festivals. But I'm one of the lucky people, and that social media gave me the opportunity to let the people decide who they like. The Cavalier Daily went to go see Hannibal Buress. Charlottesville comedian Chris Allen was the opener. We were told at the end of his set, Chris Allen offered a heartwarming introduction for Hannibal Buress, calling him a personal inspiration who proved that off-kilter black comedians could succeed in the industry. Hannibal grabbed the mic and jokingly took offense to being called weird by his opener. Hannibal started with some political comedy. Send your letters to Hannibal Buress, who lamented that America would be in much better shape if only Donald Trump's television show The Apprentice had been renewed for another season before his first presidential campaign. Hannibal did some more topical jokes about the economy and the war in Iran, and did an hour and a half. Wow. This is different, to keep things fresh throughout the set. Different for Hannibal. I've seen other comedians do this. Hannibal used a screen at the back of the stage to show funny text messages he received from his friends and brief video clips that amplify the impact of certain jokes with meme-like outbursts. We're told the audio-visual elements were used sparingly until the finale. After stepping off stage for a moment, Buress returned to enact a scenario in which a rap song he wrote called The Tallest Person at This Mexican Party became his most popular contribution to society. Seems like it was a good show. Jeff Dunham talked about his new television show on Discovery, The Cars That Drove Us. This from the folks that made the toys that made us and the movies that made us. Jeff Dunham developed his love of cars from growing up on Hot Wheels. Remember Hot Wheels, fellow oldies? Were you a Hot Wheels person or a Matchbox guy? I was a Matchbox guy. Never really liked the Hot Wheels. Matchbox. Bleeding Cool asked Jeff, if you guys get another season, do you know what cars? Jeff said, not a clue. What I loved about this one was it was 7 great cars, and then the 8th episode, we did a call. It's called The Factory. It was some of the goofy things that car designers put in the vehicles. So we have an idea. They're not B cars. They're still A cars. And if you pointed a gun at me right now and said, tell me which ones they are, I couldn't do it because I can't remember since we've gone through so many ideas. But I like the idea in a season of having one episode that's an outlier, kind of a weird one. Switching to comedy, Jeff Dunham, do you have to temper your act? Times are changing, tastes are changing. Jeff said, timing's everything. I wouldn't want to be a new comic coming up right now trying to do stand-up comedy because it's been a long time since I did a show at a comedy club. But as I understand it now, especially out here in Hollywood, the audiences can be brutal if you say anything that's somewhat too left or too right, and you will get nailed by the audience. I laugh when I talk to my daughter, who's in college in California, and she cancels me about 3 times a day. Now, if you listen to me every day, there's 2,000 episodes. You kind of get what my vibe is, right? Like I was explaining to her about season 1 of Survivor. This is all true, I bought the DVDs of season 1 of Survivor. Fellow oldies, did you watch season 1 of Survivor? Remember Rudy, the old guy? There's a clip. You can go on YouTube because I sent this to my daughter where one of the contestants, Rich, is gay. But 25 years ago, people were like quizzing him like, so is it okay to say that you're homosexual? And Rich is like, yeah, I'm homosexual. Let me pull up the clip so you don't cancel me. Here's Richard Hatch explaining, it's okay, guys.
You're not just homosexual. I know gay guys don't like to be called that because you're not homosexual. You're gay. You're.
No, I'm homosexual. I mean, do we not like to be called that?
No, because it just makes if you classify that, it's only classifying people sexual.
It's a
terms.
lifestyle.
Right.
And
well, there is a lifestyle
well,
associated with being gay, but it's not something you can't say I decided to be gay. But it's been interesting in this new environment to kind of decide when to say what about yourselves.
I think there's only one person you got to worry about.
Oh, I'm not worried about it at all. As people get to know me, they learn who I am, and then eventually over time find out I'm gay. I've never once in my life encountered prejudice based on my being homosexual.
Anyway, so I want to watch Survivor 1 with my daughter just to watch her freak out and cancel me for liking a show 25 years ago. I digress. Jeff Dunham said, audiences can be brutal, and if you say anything that's somewhat too left or too right, you will get nailed by the audience. They don't like it. When all this business started rumbling a few years ago, I was at a point in my career where there are 2 different ways you can go to a comedy club. You're either paying money just to go to the club, and you don't know who's going to be there. You don't care, you just want a night off, or you're paying a little bit more to specifically see a particular person. That's a little bit easier, because the audience who pay to see you, most of them know what to expect. When I was doing theaters and arenas, it was 85 to 90% already my crowd. They already loved Ahmed the Dead Terrorist, Jose Jalapeno on a stick. If I came up with those characters right now, there's no way they would work. As a comic, you must, as you say, temper things, or at least I'm not going to use the word temper. I'm going to show you how I present the comedy. And because I do it as a ventriloquist, I have a little bit of a huge advantage over the other comics because I can point and counterpoint. The dummy can make a joke and I can argue with him. And I can say, that's not okay. So it's a conversation, a debate. I like this a lot. The true ingredients of comedy are conflict and tension. I can create that on stage myself, and by the time I'm finished with whatever I'm talking about, whatever the subject is, the audience walks away going, I really don't know what he thinks or what he believes. Friend of the show, Ismo. Remember he was on? He was a guest. He has teamed up with a Finland-based production house. They're pushing into the live comedy space. Ismo said it's exciting to take the next steps with ICS Nordic. We share the same ambition to build comedy that travels internationally while staying true to its roots. Not entirely sure what they're up to, but I'm behind it because he's a cool guy. Hey, our friends at the 800-Pound Gorilla, they're starting a new premium ad-free service called Gorilla Comedy Plus, launching May 5th. Gorilla Comedy Plus will feature exclusive news specials, plus the full 800-Pound Gorilla catalog. That includes more than 250 titles. At launch, you'll have access to things like Star Trek Ruiner, Patton Oswalt's latest hour tea and scotch, and specials from the likes of Pete Holmes. Gorilla Comedy Plus, priced at $9.99 per month. The folks from CNN's Have I Got News for You, they are Roy Wood Jr., Amber Ruffin, and Michael Ian Black. They will be hosting the upcoming sports, news, and documentary Emmy ceremonies, but individually on different nights. On May 26th, Roy Wood Jr. will host the 47th Annual Sports Emmy Awards. Michael Ian Black will host the documentary categories of the News and Documentary Emmys on Thursday, May 28th. Amber Ruffin will host the news categories on Wednesday the 27th. Michael Ian Black, the documentary categories on the 28th. All these events take place at the Jazz at Lincoln Center's Frederick P. Rose Hall in New York. Paralyzed by Hope, the Maria Bamford story recently played the Milwaukee Film Festival. Filmmaker Neil Berkeley said, "So many comedians these days have put her on the Mount Rushmore of the greatest of all time with Richard Pryor and Rodney Dangerfield. She's that revered in this industry. I'm so tempted to bog down on a Mount Rushmore of comedy that has Richard Pryor, Rodney Dangerfield, and Maria Bamford. That's not to bash Maria Bamford, but you only get 4 on Mount Rushmores. And you also gave a spot to Rodney. I digress." Paralyzed by Hope, the Maria Bamford story, explores Bamford's comedy journey and the mental health struggles that have influenced her material. Neil says, "I want people to experience Maria. I want people to know there's this person who gets up at 8 in the morning and does comedy for 10 people in a bookstore and then that weekend goes to a 1,000-seat theater. She has this ability to turn all of her life's experiences into these incredibly funny but also useful stories. And this isn't always the goal of stand-up comedy, but you can go to her shows and everyone in that audience can hear something or learn about one of her experiences that they can empathize with." The film looks at Maria's creative process, switching between interviews, stand-up tapings, and other archival footage to show how Maria's mental health struggles and trauma have informed her comedy. And that is your comedy news for today. I will see you tomorrow.